Hey there, welcome back to Pod and Deliver. And today we're talking about the documentaries that we didn't get to share, the ones that got away, the ones that we said, you know what, we enjoyed, but we just didn't have a whole episode for that documentary. Ruben, there's a couple documentaries that I enjoyed that I wasn't able to share, and then maybe we could hear from you. But I love the 30 for 30 series from ESPN, and two of my favorite. One of them is called Survive and Advance, right? Deals with the South Carolina State basketball team. I'm sorry, the North Carolina State basketball team. And I believe, I'm trying to think, I know it was in the 1980s, I believe late 80s, right? 87 on there, and how they won the national championship. And you get to see them from the beginning of the season to the end. And it's such an exciting, wonderful documentary. So if you guys haven't seen that, please see that. And the other one is called Fantastic Lives.
Just so that before we go into the next one,
sure.
So 30 for 30 is isn't that an ESPN docu drama or?
I think originally it was supposed to be 30 directors for 30 shorts. Yeah, so originally
30 short films,
documentaries. Yeah.
Okay, documentaries, and one of those. Give us the title again.
Survive and Advance.
So what year are we talking about for South Carolina basketball team? What year was this?
Oh my gosh, I feel bad now. I'm embarrassed.
Or just give us a sense of when this was by giving us one of the coaches or one of the players.
Yeah,
just
coach.
Valvano.
Yes, Valvano. Coach Valvano. And Ruben, I feel like a dummy. I know the year and it's just escaping me right now.
That's fine. Just so that we get a little bit more of a sense of when
Coach V
was and what's going on. And for those of you, I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen
it goes through his life and the basketball team, and even his diagnosis with cancer, right, and his great speech on ESPN and so forth. Yeah.
Jim Valvano was a great coach who was stricken by cancer, and I'm assuming this is a very inspirational type.
Have you seen it?
No. I'm just trying to fill in the gaps that you said a few things, and I wanted to make sure.
Thanks for filling the gaps, buddy.
It was a lot. It was just like, then let's go to the next one. Like, whoa, let's slow down. Let's get some context. So
thank you, Ruben.
No, I haven't. I mentioned that I haven't
appreciate
seen
it.
But
you haven't seen it?
No, I'll say it again.
Oh my! Oh, you have to. No. You see it tonight, son.
Okay.
Anyway,
the title once more.
Survive and Advance. 30 for 30.
Okay.
The North Carolina State champion, national champions.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and mention the other one that you want to talk about.
Well, I was going to share also that another 30 for 30. And that's a great, like I said, that's a great series. They've been going on for years now. They've passed the 30 episodes. They're more like 60, 90 episodes now. Okay. But the one that I really sometimes share with my students, it's called Fantastic Lies. And I share it in psychology. It deals with the 2007 lacrosse team from Duke, male lacrosse team they were accused of raping a Black woman and had gone to race and so forth. These upper class collegiate students, and you go through the story, and right off the bat, people would say, "Oh, these guys are guilty because they're white, they're rich, they come from privilege." But the documentary basically takes you to the whole how it was processed, the attorneys that were involved that were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. And then so you see, I don't want to spoil the whole documentary, but you see that it wasn't exactly what people thought it was. And so Fantastic Lies is just a great title too.
Fantastic Lies. I have not seen that one either, but I would say that there's a lot of documentaries, dude.
Fun today.
Of which to watch. There's books to read and there's lives to lead.
That's true.
But
you're right.
I just want to say I do know the case, and a little bit. And I think I'm glad that they did a documentary on this.
It's incredible.
Mike Nifong was the
district attorney
of that region who was really unethical in how he prosecuted that case.
Yeah,
I believe he might have even withheld evidence, or just if I'm not mistaken, he spent some time in jail.
At least a day. The only one who went to jail was him. And he deserved it. He should have went longer.
Says a lot when you have a prosecutor that rambunctious.
Yeah.
That not even rambunctious.
You're right. Withholding evidence, not sharing what he had, manipulating evidence. It was ugly, pretty ugly. So those, go ahead, Ruben. And how about yourself? Something that got away.
One more time, the title. One more time.
That one was called Fantastic Lies, 30 for 30. Yeah, there's a couple others, but I want you to share.
Right.
I don't want to take up all the time, Ruben.
Okay. Well, I want to share about the Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling. And this is the documentary, I believe, 2016, 2017, around there,
Mhm.
directed by Judd Apatow. And Judd Apatow was one of the writers for the Gary Shandling show, not the Gary Shandling show, Larry Sanders show, um, the mockumentary or the mock talk show, not mockumentary, but mock talk show
Mhm.
that was around in the early 90s and
Mhm.
was the inspiration, by the way. People forget how what an influence Gary Shandling,
Mhm.
the late comic, was on The Office. Everybody loves The Office, while the creators of The Office say there would be no Office if there was no Larry Sanders Show.
Wow.
It's that behind the scenes kind of vibe that you get in the Larry Sanders Show. So they discuss that, but more than that, they talk about this man's life and
Hmm.
what a humble, what a decent fellow. You know,
Yeah.
he was a very funny man, but this is a guy that just worked his way from Phoenix clubs, not even in clubs. There's a great moment where he writes a letter to George Carlin, and George Carlin writes him back, and he goes and he shares his comedy with Carlin, and Gary Shandling was a nobody.
Mm.
And the fact that he sat there and said, this has potential, and he gave him actual notes, work on that. This is, somebody can just blow you off and say, oh, good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, good, good. But he gave him notes. So we talk about what power this might connect, or what connection this
Mhm.
has to teaching. When you give feedback to a student, make sure it's meaningful feedback, not
Yeah.
good job or this needs work. That
Right.
doesn't help them. So I remember George Carlin's notes, but there's so many other moments. The
Yeah.
Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling.
It's a good
Um,
one. I like that one too, Ruben, because it goes into his relationship with Tom Petty. He was good friends with Tom Petty, which is one of another great documentaries, the Tom Petty Running Down the Dream. But yeah, it goes into that piece of their relationship and their friendship. And I guess he was on his show 2 or 3 times,
right.
Petty.
Well,
So
there's several. What's great is they interview several big names, including
yeah.
Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey does a bit, or not a bit, but he discusses a joke that Gary Shandling wrote that is a great joke.
Hmm.
And Jim Carrey, you learn about joke telling and performing. Now, I do stand up. I'm not trying to impress anybody by that statement. I do stand up every week. And I learned a lot from this documentary
Hmm.
on the construction of jokes, on how to
Yeah,
deliver. Gary Shandling's delivery was unique, and not a lot to get out of and learn from and put in your toolkit.
for
Anyway,
sure. For sure.
I'm talking too much. Let's go to the last documentary. And this documentary is just fun entertainment. You're not going to change the world learning from this, but
Mhm.
it's interesting to watch. And that's Andre the Giant, the HBO documentary that you could probably still see on HBO Max. And Andre the Giant, people forget, even if you're not a wrestling fan, forget about it. I'm not a wrestling fan. But Andre the Giant was a very big,
Yeah.
big figure, towering figure. Oh, that's a fun pun, right? But he
Yeah.
was a great figure in the 80s, in the 70s,
Mm.
in the sports world. He really started crossing over into mainstream ideas. He was in the movie The Princess Bride, after all.
Yeah.
But you get a real behind the scenes look at how this giant man lived, and how uncomfortable he was riding on planes, and how he was in
Mm.
pain many, many days of his life. But he lived to entertain people, and he was the guy who had to get the bill. And there's a great scene in the movie where Schwarzenegger he's having dinner with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he goes, I finally get to pay the bill. That was a terrible Schwarzenegger. And he goes he had the credit card out first.
Yeah.
It's over. And Andre the Giant picks him up while Schwarzenegger was in the chair and says, I told you. And he takes the card out. I pay. and you get a sense that Andre the Giant, who he is and what a gentleman he
Oh,
really
yeah.
was.
Such a
And
great,
just
and a father too. I mean, that was
yeah,
part of the documentary. I remember. Yeah, that was a beautiful documentary, Ruben. And I hope our audience gets to see some of these documentaries that were just beautiful, just in spirit and to get to see the real man. He. I think he knew. I think he mentions that he knew that he didn't have a long life, right? So that was
he
a
had
good.
a condition in which obviously he grew in a abnormally big
Yeah,
features, and it took his life rather young. I'm
right.
40 something. Yeah.
I think it'd be as we're ending this episode, Ruben. I think it'd be a crime if we didn't talk about Ken Burns, because for me as a history teacher, I've shown the Civil War series at my students, pieces of episodes over the years. He has a great series on jazz and baseball, and the one that really got it going for his career and even got me going into documentaries was his documentary on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I believe you into the bridge recently, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a great documentary dealing with the construction of the bridge and who it was a father-son situation and dealing with all the people who died actually even putting the bridge together. And great one if you haven't been able to see that one. See that one, but any of Ken Bird's documentaries are great. So
Okay.
with that, we want to thank you for joining us on these documentaries that got away. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.